The long and short of it. Chapter 1.
I've got 3 princes. Ha! Beat that, Sergeant.
Sergeant Nocturnal Pike, guardsman extraordinaire, was about to ruin this rookie's night. With a feeling only found in the sweet, sweet pleasure of imminent schadenfreude, she laid her cards down on the table.
Flesh of spades. Read 'em and weep, rookie.
The table erupted with laughter as the Bat Pony Sergeant reached a purple-gray hoof across the table for her well-won earnings. It was a little bit of a reach for someone of Pike's height-impaired stature, but with good practice finesse and a premium poker face, she made no show of it. With a few clever bets and good cards, she managed to turn what looked to be a losing night into a sizable pile of newly won bits, most of them from the rookie.
I can't fucking believe it!
With that outburst, Pike turned her attention back to said rookie, who was the most recent addition to their off-night poker table. She told herself that she'd actually learned the rookie's name once she'd been in her squad for more than a few days and at the poker table for more than one night. Although at the rate that she'd been losing bits, Pike was starting to doubt that she'd made a repeat appearance.
Oh, cheer up, rookie. You've got enough bits for at least one more go.
In a clearly less than sober rage, she stomped her hoof on the table.
No way!
The finality of this affirmation caused a wave of intrigued silence to replace the laughter. Pike had to admit that she was interested too. As the rookie guardsmare placed her hoof on the table, it became clear what her next gambit was. A hoof wrestling match.
I'm sick of losing bets to your horse-apple cards. Here's the new bet. We settle this mare to mare. If I win, I get my bets back. And if you win, I'll double your money.
There was a brief pause as both Pike and the rest of the table processed what she just said, followed immediately by uproarious laughter.
The teats on this mare.
The mare sitting to the rookie's right slapped her on the back.
You really think that you can beat her? That's Nocturnal Pike you're talking to, rookie. She spent more time mulling on those training dummies than you've spent in your armor.
It's true. The Bat Pony did have a bit of a reputation, and not an unearned one at that. When she joined the guard, it was obvious to everyone that she was shorter than the average mare. Way shorter. Any shorter and she'd probably legally be a dwarf. This, of course, was an endless font of teasing and ridicule, but instead of letting it turn the Thestrel into a grumpy bitch, she channeled it into a much more constructive outlet. Training really fucking hard and being damn good at her job. As Pike raged at her marelet stature and at the part of her that she'd locked away, and am definitely not thinking about right now, nope, not one bit, she quickly became known as a guard of impeccable record with an unrivaled physique. The same physique that this rookie was now foolishly challenging. Pike smiled at the table and gestured for them to cease their laughter.
Now, fillies, let the mare dig her own grave.
She met the rookie's defiant gaze and assumed the proper hoof wrestling position.
Midnight, count us off.
The mare to Pike's right smiled, knowing what was to come.
If you say so, Pike. 3, 2, 1, go!
The rookie immediately poured all of her strength into pushing Pike's hoof over, hoping for a quick metaphorical sprint to the finish. She had to admit the rookie was stronger than Pike had thought she would be, but after losing some ground at her initial push, the sergeant was slowly gaining that ground back. As the rookie's hoof got closer and closer to the table, Pike glanced around the bar. Ponies around them had started passing bits of their own around, no doubt placing bets on the outcome of this duel. Meeting the rookie's determined stare with a cocksure grin, Pike sealed the deal and slammed her hoof into the table, finalizing her victory. The crowd that had gathered while they were in the zone immediately erupted into a cheer that at first brought an angry frown to the rookie's face, but one which quickly melted away once she'd realized that the crowd was, at that point, most of the bar. Utterly mortified, the rookie placed her head in her hooves, looking like she was going to tear up in shame at any moment.
Oh, Lotus stars above, who trained this mare? Who even raised her? Sweet Celestia, rookie, you only lost a hoof wrestling match. Don't be such a stallion about it. But Sergeant Pike, I just made a total fool of myself. Oh, so much for teats.
Pike had thought that she seemed a little colty on shift, but not this much. Hopefully it was just the alcohol talking.
You really think that most of these ponies are gonna remember this come tomorrow morning? Of course not.
The rookie's eyes weren't looking quite as misty anymore, but she still looked unsure. Pike continued.
And keep your money, I don't need it.
The rookie's gaze turned hopeful, and Pike smirked.
But you've just earned yourself a month on the blue shift.
Her hopeful face was immediately replaced with one of fear.
Sergeant Pike, wait, please!
Stepping up from the table, Nocturnal Pike turned around and began walking towards the bar. She then turned her head around and shouted over the raucous crowd.
Next time, try not being such a little bastard.
Seated firmly at the bar was a pleasantly tipsy Anonymous. Turning away from the spectacle to stare at his fuzzy green hooves, he couldn't help but ponder the circumstances of his life and how he got here. Probably that frickin' camping, lightning, experimental panini maker accident. Actually, now that he stopped to think about it, it was definitely that. He told those bastards that it would never work, and now he was the one paying the price, trapped in a magical land of pastel horses. No one had any idea how to change him back or send him home, so for the foreseeable future, he'd remain what he'd become. Anonymous the Unicorn, forever trapped in Bruma. Or at least it felt like Bruma, or Even that island from Wonder Woman. All the men are women. And in a world where all the men are women, Anonymous had found it kinda difficult to connect with anyone. He didn't really have many female friends back on Earth, and that was a trend that had transferred across the dimensional divide much more seamlessly than he would have liked at the number of stallions that he hung out with. They were all just so ridiculously girly. And as far as female friends here were, there was typically too much of a cultural clash. Most mares would at first be interested and enthused by his Jane Filly, as they call it, exterior, but once they dug into the meat and potatoes, they quickly became less so. Frankly, they all thought that he was a bucking weirdo. Things were even worse when it came to romance. Anon didn't have a domestic bone in his body. Dad raised me to be a breadwinner, goddammit. And the mares were not hip to a stallion who wasn't even slightly a homemaker, never mind that he lacked the skills to even do it in the first place. And all that was why he found himself here, drinking alone. Again. Or so he thought, until the sound of a voice to his left side clued him in that might not entirely be the case.
Hey there, stud.
Nocturnal Pike liked her chances. After leaving the rookie to wallow in the fact that she'd just been assigned to guard Blue Blood's personal hallway for the next month, Pike had intended to buy herself a drink and retire to the squad's drinking table. But then she saw a far better option. A green unicorn stallion with a black mane sitting at a bar and drinking alone. A tall green unicorn stallion. A really tall green unicorn stallion. And she wasn't thinking that just because she was short. One glance at him and she was sure that he'd even tower over those colts that they led into the guard after that lawsuit.
Holy cow, imagine what it would be like to be his little spot.
Pike shook her head to banish those unmerely thoughts. She may not be a big pony, but Mare's big spoon, dammit. But that didn't change the fact that tall stallions definitely did something to her. So much so that she knew that she'd be beating herself up all night if she didn't try to score, no matter how airheaded that he ended up being. So here she was, bringing her A-game. Posture, casual. Smile, assured. Charm, at maximum. Hoping that he saw her display of raw femininity? Absolutely.
What's a cute stallion like you doing drinking alone?
Anon turned to face his addresser. Or he at least tried to, but when he turned his head in the direction, he heard the voice come from... where, well, there was no one there. He was confused for a moment until the sound of someone clearing their throat directed his attention downwards. Downwards to the sight of the smallest pony that he'd ever seen. I mean, this bitch tiny. She was one of those half-bat, half-horses. Thestrals? He thought that's what they were. Vaguely, he recognized her as the pony who just won the hoof wrestling contest. She had a purple-gray coat with a dark blue mane that had some light blue streaks running through it. He looked closer at her amber-colored eyes as they were awkwardly glancing around— Wait, oh, fuck. That whole time I was staring at her and she was just sitting there waiting for an answer. Shit. Just trying to meet some new ponies. Anon smiled, what he hoped was his most disarming smile, and desperately waited for the normal flow of conversation to resume. Any second now. Any second. While the stallion's initial reaction did catch Nocturnal Pike a bit off guard, she was taking it in with stride. Clearly he was just a little nervous, and there's nothing like a cool, confident mare to soothe the stallion's nerves. Flexing her forelegs and puffing her tuft, she put a reassuring smile on her face.
He says he's here to meet new ponies? I can work with that.
She made a show of leaning around to look at the empty seats to either side of him.
Well, lucky for me, it seems like I'm the first who's come your way tonight. The name's Pike, Sergeant Nocturnal Pike.
Much to her pleasure, it seemed that moving past the initial awkwardness had put the wind back under his metaphorical wings as his posture relaxed and he smiled a little more earnestly. He reached out with his hoof for a bump. Anonymous. A bump which Pike met. As she pulled her hoof away, however, she felt something for a split second.
Did he just try to grab my hoof?
She caught the same confusion that she'd briefly felt mirrored on his face, but before she could dwell on it, his smile, now slightly less at ease, returned. It was weird, but she put the incident out of her mind and motioned for the barkeep.
Time to get this colt liquored up.
Several drinks had now passed. Pike and Anon, as he'd asked her to call him, were both in pretty deep, and the green stallion was nearing the end of another story. So then, we took our patrol leader's chair and tent and hoisted them into a tree, and he was so mad. She laughed genuinely. He may have been yammering on about himself, as stallions are prone to do, but at least the stories that he was telling were funny. They reminded her of her kind of mischief that she got up to as a filly.
Anon, where'd you say this happened again?
The Scouts.
Scouts? Like Cult Scouts?
Yes, it was.
Cult Scouts!
Pike wasn't sure if the stallion was for real. Every pony knows Colt Scouts never go camping. Filly Scouts were the ones who went camping. All Colt Scouts got to do were sell cookies and do things inside, like cooking and sewing and those other house husband things that she'd always wanted to do.
This cult's whimsy must be off the charts. Don't call him out on it though, cults hate that. Just move on Anon, you're full of horse apples. It seems Cider, my most stalwart wingmare, has betrayed me.
Pike could see him processing what she just said, a confused look on his face. Soon that look would become the face of indignation, and then the waterworks would start.
In about 3, 2...
No, I'm not. That totally happened. You're just jealous that you couldn't do that stuff in Philly Scouts. Ignoring that he was right and that she was jealous of what they got to do in Colt Scouts, that didn't make any sense. He just described the universal experience of Philly Scouts. Pike's drunken brain could not handle all this whimsy. She'd taken a lot of Colts to the shack though, and he was the first that could handle being told that they're full of horse apples. That alone put him in the top 10 in her book. And he'd somehow been keeping up with her, without even ordering a cocktail. And he was motioning the barkeep for more.
Just who's trying to get who drunk here?
It was even later, and Anonymous was pretty sure that the bartender was about to cut him off. She kept staring at the enormous pile of mugs that he and Pike had accumulated after he told her to stop taking them. Pike had said something earlier about how no stallion could outdrink a mare, and his pride as an X-Man would not stand for that. As it stood, they were dead even, in drink and drunkenness. Speaking of drunkenness, Pike was slurring something out.
So, Anon, did I ever tell you how I got my cutie mark?
Maybe. Just tell me again anyway. In response, Pike did her best attempt at shoving said cutie mark into his face. It was still pretty far away though, her legs weren't really long enough. Nonetheless, he could see the silhouette of a pony doing some kind of backflip in front of a full moon adorning those sweet, sweet flanks. Pike grinned.
Better yet, how about I take it back to my place and show ya?
The innuendo landed in a distant part of Anon's mind, but far more of it landed in a very different area. I just got invited to hang out at someone's house for the first time in months. As such, with a display of enthusiasm that caught not only her but the rest of the bar off guard, Anon shouted, "Hell yeah, let's fucking go!" Leaping off of his stool and stumbling towards the door, he motioned for Pike to lead the way. And she did, laughing all the way. Man, I hope she's got Halo. Yeah, he misinterpreted that big time. But hey, everything worked out in the end anyway. Now let's get on to our very strong donators. Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Taco Cat 598, Zar 630, Strix, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Will, James Burner, Dospel, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Rinslife 9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Perkett, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Line God 12, and many more magical people. Thank you all very much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.